All right, let's ask the question, why do we grade? But first, how much time do you spend on grading? I wonder. A couple years ago, I realized I started doing some math in my head. I was out on the hallway doing the hallway duty stuff, and I realized that I had about 180 students, about 180, roughly. And if I spent just 1 minute, just 60 seconds per student per week on grading, that was 180 minutes. 180 minutes was 3 hours for 60 seconds of grading. 60 seconds. That just seemed like a crazy realization to me because I realized how much time I put into grading. I mean, it was so many hours per week that it was no wonder I was working way more than 40 hours a week. So, and the worst part was that I realized not only did I hate the grading, but I didn't feel like the grading was very valuable. All right, so that was way too much time. Now, why do you grade? Like, what's the point of grading? Like, what are all your reasons? And I want you to go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to make a little list. Like, what are all the reasons that you personally spend 10 hours or whatever it is you spend each week on grading? Let's hope you're not spending 10 hours, but I realize you easily can. So, pause the video, come up with your list. All right, now that you got your list, here's a list that I made. This is my personal list, so let's see how many of them are the same as yours. So the first reason was because I had to. I hated grading. It was not something I found very enjoyable, and I didn't find it very productive, and it was very, very time intensive. And so I mostly did it because I had to. That was the expectation of my principals and the job. I did, however, want to provide meaningful feedback to students. I do fully believe in giving good feedback to my students. The problem was I didn't have time to give really quality feedback, so I rarely did this one. I wanted to do this one, but I rarely did it. So that's real. I don't like admitting it, but I did find myself saying, like, here are the good students, here are the bad students, here are the ones that are in the middle. And because in my opinion, it allowed me to say, these are the students, because I never used that language, of course, but I would say, these are the students that need more support. These are the students that need more motivation, they need more whatever. But it allowed me to rank and then say, well, these students don't need anything from me because they're getting 100% on all my assessments, so they're good, they're fine. I don't have to worry about them, I don't have to think about them. I can just focus on these students who are really, really struggling. And so that's one of the reasons why I did it. And then I did believe that grades were an accurate representation of how successful a student would be in the real world or in high school or whatever. I'm not sure that's true anymore, but I definitely believed that. And so I used my grades as a way to measure their success. When I talk to parents, I'd even say, like, my class is a measure of how successful they will be at following directions and doing what their boss tells them to do, things like that. So that was one of my realities. I did believe that grades motivated students, and they do for some of them, a few of them. Some students they're like very motivated by grades, but generally speaking, those are going to be the students that do well anyways. So just saying that. But they do not motivate. Grades do not motivate students who are historically behind all the time. But it honestly did not motivate my students who were struggling in my class. They just decided it's not even worth it. They wouldn't even try at all. So that's a big one. Grades allow me to assess my own teaching effectiveness, which I would say, am I teaching in a way that helps students to learn these concepts or not? And so I could use that as a way to measure my own success. Already talked about talking to parents about things and communicating how well they're doing in school and if they're behaving and they're paying attention and they're getting the work done and all those things, complying. And then basically to help me decide, is my curriculum really teaching things that I was hoping it was going to teach. Now, and that one was problematic because I would base my assessments on the curriculum. So then sometimes it was validating the curriculum, even though it may not be teaching to the standards that I'm supposed to teach to. So those were all my realities. And there's nothing not inherently wrong with any of these concepts, but they are problematic if we are, some of them are very problematic if we're trying to shift to a culture of learning and growing. All right, let's look at the next piece. All right, so if you were in charge, what would you grade and why would you grade it? And I've got a few questions here that might help you in the process of this. These are going to be some of the reflection questions I want you to put in the reflection, in the discussion down below, right below the video here. And so here's question number one. What are your current grades? If you were to really analyze your current grading scheme, what are you grading on for your students? Are you grading them on attendance? Right. So do they have to show up in order to get a grade, a good grade? Like, is there anything in your grade that says if you don't show up, like if you're absent, that somehow will penalize you? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. What if they're late? What if they're late, constantly late to your class? Right? Is there anything about that? Do you take off points if a student is late? Okay. Achievement. So are they achieving? So are they passing your tests? Are you really focused on the learning part of it? So what they have learned in your course. Compliance. So are they turning in your homework on time? Are they turning in your homework at all? Are they doing all the classwork? Are they listening to your directions? We have things like behavior in there. So are people off task? Are they going to the bathroom too much? I've had people say that if you go to the bathroom more than X number of times, then you start losing points in your grades. If you don't go to the bathroom during the entire time and you get like little bathroom passes, then you can get bonus points for that. Okay, so is that part of your grade? Are your tests set up in a way that you need to have decent skills to kind of know how to take a test, like especially multiple choice tests? Classic example of something where there are skills. There are definitely skills to taking a multiple choice test and understanding and doing better if you know some of those skills. So is that a piece of it? Growth, are you measuring how much they've improved on time or just what they have learned? So like, can you do this, can you do this, can you do this? Or like improvement, which ones are you doing there? Knowledge, so how much do you know? Just like, can you know? And then like that is different than your ability to do. So are you scientific practices, for example? Can you design an investigation? That would be a practice, not necessarily knowledge. Like, do you know this particular piece? Are you measuring effort? So if somebody tries really hard, are you giving them points for trying really hard? And then, like we talked about behavior already. So that's a big question. Another question is it important to rank students against each other? Is it important to know that this student's at a 99, so they're at the top of the class, and this student is at a 95? Like, it's important for you to know where everybody is, that there's some people that who have the highest scores, and there's some people that have the lowest scores, and there's a bunch of people in between. Is that important? Well, a good question. How important is memorization to you in your grades, in your class? And given the fact that we can basically look up anything we want to in a moment's notice on one of these devices, how important is memorization? And how does that play in with cheating? So if your tests are set up that they could easily look up the answer, what does that mean? And I have conflicting thoughts about memorization, and I think it does increase efficiency and it can help with ideation, but there's a limit to some of that, I think. So I'm curious about that one. And then last question is, what keeps you motivated at work? Like, what makes you personally motivated? And then how is that different from students? So for me personally, what keeps me motivated at work is having a strong sense of purpose, like I'm doing something that's important. I have autonomy, that I can choose how to make things happen in my classroom, and I can have some choice on things. And that, so those are big ones for me, and having people around me who support me in my growth and help me to do better and expect me to do better every year, but also don't yell at me for not doing better if I'm having a bad day or something like that. All right. That's big stuff. A lot of questions there for you to dig in on. So again, put some of those down in the reflection down there, and I will see you in the next video.